Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas. We're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Those of you that have been watching probably noticed that, Lakshmi, the Murti, the statue behind me, hasn't been with us here for the past few weeks. She's been at the temple. There's a period of 9 days of Mother Divine celebration where she's there, and there's the time I have her here. So she should be back by next week, So it'll be good to have her back. She definitely fills the room with a powerful feeling, At any rate, today, what we're going to be talking about, and I have Scotty with me, we're going to be talking about the truth about Bhakti, the spiritual path of devotion. And I have to say, it's a delicate topic. So I'm going to be really careful. I asked Scotty to help me. We have to say things in a way that people can receive them. And I know once I was given a lecture. This was in Bay Area, San Francisco. And it was almost all, students, people that have heard me talk about it and were familiar with my perspective on it. And so I just made some comment, but there was somebody in the room, just kind of as a tangential comment to whatever it was we were talking about in the moment. And there was somebody in the room that hadn't heard those previous lectures, and they really misunderstood my point. And so I want to be careful that I don't make, that kind of mistake really here again. It's just a very delicate subject, because what we're talking about, see, here's the thing, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, or at least alluded to it, that in the depth of everybody's being, we sense our own soul, our own divinity, our own sense of the value, the preciousness of our own self, however you want to say it. The kingdom of heaven within, some people would say it that way. The place where we're one with God, some people might say it that way. And the thing is that people have a tendency, quite understandably, to associate that with their religion or associate that with their relationship with God. And so if then you talk about the relationship with God, it's a delicate terrain, because you're talking about something that's very, very, very intimate to every individual. And we all have our own views on it. You see, here's the thing. Everything in existence exists what I call transgradiently, from the most superficial levels of life to the most profound, deep, and subtle and sublime levels of life. And every word, for example, in the Veda has every word everywhere really has different meanings. What we mean by God, for example, varies quite a bit with the individual. At the deepest level, the transcendental depth, there's one God. There's one, thing, if I can use that word, that is the source of everything. And it is that which birthed everything. And it's that which everything is gravitating back to. And we feel that in the depth of our soul. And different people will associate it with different, perspectives, different religions, different beliefs and convictions. And but what is our own evolution, our own spiritual growth, our own spiritual evolution? What is it really? Well, it's cultivating deeper and deeper and deeper, more refined, more sublime, more expanded understandings, and ability to feel into it on deeper levels. Because, spirituality isn't about, when I talk about, feeling into the depth of your soul or the deepest level of your being, deeper levels of communion with God, that doesn't mean communing with the deepest level that we're capable of feeling right now. It means feeling into, communicating with that deepest level that is humanly possible to feel into once the physiology gets refined. But now to go through that from the surface notion, we could say, of God as a notion, or I don't know how you want to, and then we go through this emotional level, which can be beautiful, but nevertheless it's emotion, and it can be so overwhelming that it's difficult to feel anything deeper. You know, we just get so caught up in our emotional love of God or what have you, that the more sublime relationships start to elude us. And even if we get through that and we are at a more sublime level, there are different degrees of depth of that sublime value. And so, you know, that's kind of what we want to talk about, you know, and I've talked about how human evolution is about moving from that. It's like water flowing down a mountain stream, you know. Everything is naturally gravitating back to that ocean, the ocean of being, the ocean of oneness. But along the way, sometimes it's shooting rapids and progressing and evolving very quickly. Other times it can get caught in an eddy current. I know my teacher used to say it's like when you're growing spiritually, it's like going up in an elevator. And the thing is that there's an inclination that if you stop and get off halfway up and look out at the view, it's so beautiful that you almost don't want to get back in the elevator and keep going. You just want to enjoy that view at that level. And so, you know, we can get stuck at a particular level. Or it can be even that we get.
Michael, is it also where like you can get off at that level and then it can give you the illusion that you're there, kind of a thing? And this is so
that's a good point.
You know, is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, it's all astral echoes. I like to say, you know, there's a yantra that's basically just concentric circles, you know, and the bindu point, that point which is that deepest level, that transcendental level, that level of Chaitanya. It's like when you throw a pebble in a pond, you get ripples, and it's like echoes of truth. And echoes of truth, again, perceived as truth, hold truth at bay. And so people can get stuck at a more superficial level through their entire life. Whereas, like Adi Shankar said, the path of spiritual growth is a path of discernment, ongoing discernment, deeper and deeper, deeper levels, you know. But because it's an echo of truth, like Scotty, like you're saying, Scott, it's like, well, let's say you got a little echo and you're really close to it, but you're not right on it. Well, you know, the feeling is, oh yeah, it's the same thing. Everything you're saying, you know, about it, or everything you read in the scripture about it. Yeah, I get it. I am that. That's right. Echo of truth. But you don't have to see it as an echo of truth. You think you get it. I call that the I get it syndrome. And then even if you're out a little further, it's still an echo. Further out, it's still an echo. And so echoes of truth, perceived as truth, hold truth at bay. But they become, because see, we associate that with the divinity within our being. I don't care how far out the echo is. We sense that, we feel into that as, yeah, that's my soul, that's my being. So if anybody tries to talk with you about it and maybe help you evolve past it, it becomes even offensive. Who are you to talk to me about my relationship with my God, you know, kind of a thing. So you can see how delicate it is and how subtle it is. And, well, that's one thing I saw this guy on, it was a commercial on TV. And he was a preacher, minister. And he was talking about how the world is so confused right now. It's such a mess. The only way out is God. God has to intervene. And on one level, you see, echoes of truth. On one level, it's like, you know, that even turns off a lot of rational people because they hear that and they say, oh, come on, what are you saying? Some guy's going to come down off his cloud and wave a magic wand. And so what it does is it polarizes people actually from those sort of spiritual and religious understandings. So simultaneously, I see it as so beautiful that somebody would say that. And at the same time, I can understand how other people would hear it And it just doesn't make any sense. But as we go deeper and deeper, and that's why I think it's important too to understand the science of the whole thing. I was Scotty, I was at the Hanuman Murti, you know, the statue outside just the other day, and there was a nice couple there, and I could tell they were going to go, you know, do production or whatever, and I could tell they were with their young son, and their son was feeling funny about it, you know. And so I stopped, and he was, I don't know how old he was. I'm going to guess 12 or something, but probably younger. And I said to him, I said, I want you to know, I said that it's a very deep science, but this is physics. There's a physics to it. It's not just, you know, what, Scotty, what's the word?
Airy, fairy, flighty.
Yeah, it's not just superstition, airy, fairy, flighty, whatever you want to call it. There's a science to it. And then I looked at the parents. I said, I know that you both know that. And they just nodded, yeah. But I said, it's important that our children understand that. And it's important that the world understand that. Because the truth of the matter is, yeah, you know the solution to this whole thing? And just to say it this way, you know, again, it's going to turn off some people. But the solution to the whole thing is God. But what do we mean by that? It means coming from the depth of your being, that place where you really are one with everything. It's physics, the unified field of modern physics. That place where we live in harmony with everything. We not over, but understand everything. And it doesn't mean we get it intellectually like that. There are different kinds of understanding, but we find it in our soul. I think that's why people are so enamored with the Mona Lisa, because she's got a smile in there of what, Scotty? Inner wisdom. It's like, you know, she understands, you know. Yeah. She's not hovering over. She understands in humility. Yeah. So humility, you know, is the flip side of wisdom. There's that one Bob Dylan song that's written. I really like a lot of his. He was a great poet. And it starts out, love mine is zero, no limit. It starts out, my love, she speaks like silence. And I just think that's a beautiful line, you know. It's not invasive. It's not condescending. It's not critical. It's not judgmental. It's and really, isn't that like just the incarnation of kindness, you know, to understand everything, but to not be negative and critical. And so that's the arena we're in when we start talking about Bhakti Yoga, when we start talking about the spiritual path of devotion, because we can be devoted on a very superficial level and it becomes voodoo or, you know, but even if you talk to people that are, I don't know, there was this one Star Trek where they landed on some planet and the natives there evidently were worshiping some idol, and it turned out that what the idol was a computer that crashed on that planet years ago and it was saying all this weird stuff, and the people were taking it in as a word from God because they thought it was, you know, God came from heaven type of thing. And so you can see how we have to be careful, because for even those people in that Star Trek episode, they associated that with that divinity within their own soul that they could feel. And so to try to, you know, help them look more deeply into their relationship with that idol, you know, they would find horribly offensive, insulting, you know, sacrilegious, you know.
So it kind of can be like, oh, this is it. This is, I got it now because this hits all the points that I've been told or I've known to be it.
And there's the I get it syndrome, astral echoes of truth perceived as truth. Right. It parallels all these different ripples coming from the place the pebble entered the ocean of being, you know, all these ripples are echoes of truth, and I get it. Yeah.
Well, the mindset then for us that are on this path has got to always be, I guess, in the gap between knowing and not knowing, and always like, you know.
Yeah, and Adi, that's right.
Yeah.
Adi Shankar called it the path of discernment, We have to cultivate discernment. It's not a thing that you can even grab onto. You know, when you transcend relativity, when you awaken to that pure field of Chaitanya, you know, pure isness, pure oneness, the one thing that's the source of everything. When you fully awaken to that, you can't grab onto it. You know, sometimes it's even referred to Shiva, you know, that Shiva value is referred to as he who has no name, you know, but that's the transcendental depth. And right on the surface even of that transcendental depth, all relativity, all the different levels of relativity there, on the deepest level, that transcendental, right where it emerges, right where Chaitanya emerges in the relativity, is called Bhavatitam. It's Bhava. Now, Bhava is, we could say it's the highest form of devotion, because Bhava is like ecstasy, the ecstasy of union with God, not to be confused with an astral echo, which is, you know, emotional indulgence, which can even be an eddy current in that stream, you know, that's flowing back to oneness. It can become like an eddy current where you get stuck and you become convinced that your path of devotion is emotional upheaval. And the more emotional upheaval, the more spiritual you are. And that can become a distraction, you see? Whereas Bhava, there's a great saint, Anandamaya Ma, and she would go into states of Bhava. And see, on the one level, I want to say you could just tell it was real. It was that deepest level of communion, you know? She was the real deal, you know? She even, yeah. But here's the thing, too. We talk about, there's a thing that the ancients said that's it's good to know. You cannot really, it's very difficult, say at least, to identify the level of another person's evolution if they're more evolved than you are. Because on the one hand, you can kind of feel it, but on another hand, you have your belief systems, you have your eddy currents, you have your identities, you have the notion of God that you cling to, that you relate to that deeper level, but you know, it's an echo. And so if somebody's on, say, a deeper level, they're not going to be as identified with that. They're going to see beyond that, but you're not going to be able to appreciate it really, because you don't have the refinement. And it's really all about refinement. It's cultivation of refinement of awareness. That's what human evolution is about. That's what spiritual growth is about. And how can you perceive something that your physiology just doesn't have the refinement yet to perceive? You see? But at the same time, I say that when you're around a more evolved person, provided there's not too much, you know, provided there's some humility around it, you can sense that this person knows something I don't, or this person's coming from a deeper level, which again is why I think so many people like that picture of, I'm spacing out here, what's her name, with the Mona Lisa smile, you know? There's something there that she knows deeper. You know, she has wisdom, you know? So once we understand that, and hopefully I said it in a way, Scotty, how do we do that? You know, it's not being offensive to any group.
Right.
But once we understand that, then it gets really challenging when we say, okay, can I take a look at where I am in that continuum, that from the surface level of understanding of it, of devotion, surrender. You know, in chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita, you know, Krishna says it's all about surrender. And he says, surrendering to me. But now what do people hear when they hear surrendering to me? Well, Krishna was the absolute, Chaitanya. And so really what he was saying is surrender to Chaitanya. And I am a vehicle for that. I am an embodiment of that. Christ said it all the time, didn't he? You know, I am the truth, the light, and the way, and there is no other, you know, and that's all true, because there's only one absolute. There's only one divine. There's only one God. There's only one point where that pebble enters the water, you know, and then all the echoes, you know. So the path of Bhakti yoga can be a very challenging one because it's so easy to get caught up in an eddy current, for example. At the same time, it's an essential part because that devotion cultures the refinement and the physiology. But that even is going to come in different forms for different people, you know, and there are going to be different religions around it, and there are also going to be different levels of conviction. You know, we don't all have to believe in. I mean, this is stretching a little bit, but there is a truth to it that we don't even have to be committed to a relationship with God as a personality to ultimately transcend and commune with God. There's a lot lacking there. Like when they asked Einstein, can you explain the sunset in terms of pure physics? He says, yes, you can, but if you do, it loses its meaning. And so kind of like that, it's possible. I'm just saying it's possible for a person to live that level of depth, that level of refinement, be coming from that place, not an echo of truth, but from that truth with a capital T, and having that integrated throughout their being, and not really even be all that much dedicated to the personified component. I almost feel like I'm saying something that's not true, even though I know it's true. But you see, some people have said they talk about me and they say, "Oh, you're a jnana yogi. You're a yogi with the intellectual path to enlightenment." And I say, no, I'm a bhakti yogi. I have deep, profound love of God, but it's just not overtly, emotionally. What, Scotty? Airy-fairy or over the top emotional, you know, like that. It's integrated on a deeper level. I feel it profoundly, but on a very deep level. You know, here's something really beautiful. I'll give an example from the Vedic and also from the Christian. Sometimes at the temple, there have been some people that chant. And I remember one time at the temple, I guess it was a Saturday or Sunday, I don't know, some holiday or whatever. And there was a lady there that chanted. And it was beautiful. It was coming from a deep place inside of her. And it was just so moving. And I remember after she chanted, I made the comment, I said, something like that is beautiful. And you could the whole crowd was like, you know, they all kind of, yeah, you know, because it just took us all to such a deep place within. Then I remember once there was a man there that chanted, and I can't even, it's hard to even put in words where I went with that. It was just so deeply, profoundly, exquisitely beautiful, you know. And even every weekend or when the temple fills with people and they chant, it just, you know, it brings me back to, I've always felt that when I was a little kid, on Sundays, my family would get together, aunts and uncles and everybody, and it'd be like a big potluck. And they did it every Sunday. And there was just a feeling there that, and I didn't really think about it when I was a kid, you know, but the feeling of such sweetness and such beautiful communion. And it was, even if I was outside and the kids would be outside playing, and I was a kid then, you know, we'd be outside playing or whatever, but you could just feel the feeling around the whole thing, you know, such a cultivation of heart. And that's, well, then we could get into the value of family. And it's one thing I really say about the Indian community is they keep their families very tight knit, more so than we tend to in the West. And it's a real loss in the West. We don't really understand the importance of mother, father, children, aunts, uncles, family, you know, and the sublime value that can create, you know. But chanting, then, you see, here's the thing too. Chanting can be on a very superficial level. And I'm really not wanting to point any fingers, but I think, you know, a lot of people have pointed fingers at kind of some of the chanting that goes on or used to 10 or 20 years ago around airports and things, Scotty.
Yeah.
And and people just feel like, that's nuts. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's where people go with it. So if we're attentive and if we're not too caught up in an eddy current or a paradigm or an identity or a belief system, then we start to become able to discern, and we start to be able to kind of sense the depth of beauty or whatever. And from the Christian, I'll tell you one thing that I was living in Germany for just a short while. I think it was Switzerland, Germany for maybe half a year. I think it was, I can't remember. But I was walking the streets in a little town along the Rhine, and outside of a music store, they had some CDs and things they were selling. So I saw this one of Mozart and intrigued me, so I bought it. And that's the first time. I was young at the time, but there was a recording of Ave Virium Corpus by Mozart. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. If not, I would really recommend going to YouTube, and you can type it in. What is it? Ave, A-V-E, space Verum, how's that? V-E-R-U-M, I guess, space Corpus, Ave Verum Corpus, and by Mozart. You type in Mozart, and many versions of it come up, and it's exquisitely beautiful. And it just brings you to such a deep place inside, Maybe I should tell this other story. Let's talk about this. Where is God? God is everywhere. And God is in that rock. God is in everything. And that's true. But then there's another thing where you got in heaven above. And that's true too. So what's the deal? Well, there are different levels. And on a particular energetic level, we could call it the astral level if we wanted. There's a reality to the idea that it's a mapping. The big toe, remember, in reflexology, the big toe maps onto the head, the heel maps onto the pelvis, that kind of thing. There's a mapping of the transcendent, where the transcendent maps onto heaven above. You see, and the physical body into the earth, and that maps onto the human physiology of what they call the energy system, the chakras, if you will. So we commune with heaven above through the upper chakras. And so it's natural then. What are we doing when we're doing that? Well, we're doing a mapping. We're allowing the physiology to feel into that mapping of heaven above, and also the connection with it is through these upper centers. It's just natural. You see them do it on Sunday morning TV on, the Christian Bible stuff, in the churches. And it's beautiful. But I mean, if you don't understand that, and if you just block to it, you see these people doing that and you think they're crazy. You just think it's ridiculous. But there's a reality to it, a physiological reality, a mapping reality. But we have to understand the mapping. And that, in fact, speaks to the difference. Well, what is the difference then between a rock and a human being, if we're all God anyway? Well, obviously, even though it's not said, and maybe then not clearly understood, the difference is the nature of the nervous system. A rock does not have a very sophisticated nervous system, but there are different forms of rocks. A crystal, for example, has a more sophisticated, if you will, nervous system. And same with flowers. Different flowers have different sophistication in the nervous system. A human being has a very evolved nervous system. In fact, a human being has a nervous system that is capable of transcending. What does that mean? Capable of moving to deeper and deeper levels until it finally gets down to that Bindu point level, that point of communion, real communion, not an astral echo, but that real communion with divinity. And achieving that level of sophistication, refinement of the nervous system, of the physiology, is what our spiritual growth is all about. And if done wisely, if done properly, the path of devotion can really accelerate that process, but not if you get stuck on some eddy current, you see. The Jnana Yoga, the intellectual, and what we just talked about, this was intellectual understanding of Bhakti Yoga. But that intellectual understanding becomes a path that can help facilitate our evolution. And of course, the most powerful thing is what I call proper meditation. What do I mean by that? It's a meditation where you allow the awareness then to just rest and go where it naturally is gravitating to, that transcendental level, Chaitanya. Yes, Scotty?
So in essence, then we need to be looking at these as tools to help facilitate the, evolution of our nervous systems into, what you were just describing.
Higher levels of evolution. Yeah,
Right.
You can say that. Refinement of the physiology, but not blood chemistry physiology. We're talking about physiology of awareness. Right?
Yeah. So they're great tools. They're lousy masters. That's where I've heard you say in certain things like that, where these are things that we don't need to get lost to. They're not the thing. They're in essence the tools that we use to refine ourselves to get.
You could say that. When I don't remember when I used that expression, great tools but lousy masters. Maybe the intellect.
That thoughts. You were talking about thoughts, and what are thoughts are great tools. They're lousy masters. I remember you hearing that, and I was just applying that to the Bhakti or any of these other things that are at our disposal to help us refine to get to that point.
Yeah, you're right. And see, that's where we need to be careful too, isn't it? Because if somebody hears that you're calling my spiritual devotion a lousy master, I mean, all of a sudden we're in trouble. Yeah, we don't mean that. We don't.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I'm just saying you've got to have a relationship with that doesn't get you lost to that.
You just nailed it. It's all about relationship with.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just nailed it, Scotty. It's not about the thing. It's about your relationship with the thing. I'd rather have a healthy relationship with the bad thing, which, for example, hemlock, a healthy relationship with hemlock is you don't drink it, than have a bad relationship with a good thing, which might be, for example, a surrender commitment to a notion of God that is really justifying terrorism, for example. If our relationship with God is a good thing, but that's a lousy relationship with it. Yeah.
Right.
This is the world of wanting. This is the world of duality. It's the world of separation. Separation has a pinch to it. And the ultimate wanting really is to find that communion. And we do it more often than not through people, through our love for people. When we love someone, they become something that cultures the heart. And what is it? When we really love somebody, we see that divinity within them. We feel more and more so, depending upon the depth of our love, we so deeply love our children, for example, that we feel our oneness with them, And that in and of itself can become a path to spiritual enlightenment, if you will, to spiritual awakening, to deeper and deeper levels of understanding. And I just want to say this: the main component in a marriage, in a relationship with anybody that you love, is kindness. Did I say this, Scotty, in one of the podcasts? They did a study and they asked older, not young adults, but middle-aged and older adults, what's the main thing is that they think is the most important thing in a marriage or in a relationship. Number one answer: kindness. So we do well to cultivate kindness. And a good marriage can be a very, very powerful path to spiritual realization, because it's a path from separation to oneness. And at the deepest level of existence, Chaitanya is that pure sense of self, pure isness, pure oneness. And then just as it starts to sprout, to emerge in the relativity, it becomes bhavatitam, that bhava, that love. So there's that slight degree of separation, just so that you can commune with God from some level of distance, and then there's the merging, and they can exist simultaneously. To the Lord, I am you, I am me, you are you, we are one simultaneously, And that's And we can sense that. I mean, I think people feel that with their children. You know, we love our children. We feel so one with them. But at the same time, they're their own people, you know. Bhavati Tam. And that's what Mount Soma is all about. What are we all about here? We're trying to help humanity cultivate that refinement. And we do it, and there are technologies to do that. Just like you were saying, Scotty, tools. There's a very powerful tool in that we can build a unified field generator. That's what Mount Soma is, and it's based on the cognitions of the ancient masters. They gave us this knowledge, how to build something that radiates that transcendental value out so it permeates all levels of life and helps all creatures, great and small, you know, evolve and gravitate back to oneness, because it's that source of harmony, that source of perfection that brings peace, prosperity, love, all good things. It's like watering the root of a plant, the whole thing blossoms, you know. And that's what we want to do at Mount Soma. And we just, you know, it's a sad thing because there's a technology to it. And it's just about building that unified field generator. And it's terrible to say in a way, but that's about money. Enough money, we could build it, you know, and it's step at a time, step at a time, step at a time. And I know there are billionaires out there. Hopefully there's somebody like that listening to this thing. We don't need to build a whole thing, $200 million they're predicting, but we could do it, you know, incrementally, a little at a time, a little at a time, and we can change the world. And that's the ancient secrets. You want to know how the Egyptians built the pyramids? They awoke into a deeper level of understanding, deeper technologies of which we currently are not aware. And how do you do that? You awaken and refine the physiologies of people so they're not so lost and so identified to one paradigm. You see, one echo of truth or one principle that does work, but there are other principles, you see. All right. Well, I kind of got on my high horse there, didn't I, Scotty?
Well, but I think we were delicate.
Yeah, hopefully we did our best. That's all you can say at the end, you know. All you can do is your best, you know. I remember there's a dear friend of mine, Dr. John Shen. He was a Chinese doctor, old, wise Chinese gentleman. He was a Chinese doctor. People flew in from all around the world just to see him. And he and I became close friends. And he once said to me, so all you can do in life, he says, you know, when you put your head on your pillow at night, every night, just say to yourself, I did my best, you know. Okay, that's it for today. And I think next week we're going to talk about, I'm thinking about doing Darwin and the Veda. Could be an interesting one. Okay, take care. Thanks for listening.